Alright guys, I want you to imagine if you were a race car builder and you came up with some technology that was so revolutionary, so advanced, so freaking crazy that it got your car banned from racing. Well, that's exactly what happened to the Chaparral Can-Am team with their 2J sucker car. It took a whole new approach to aerodynamics and downforce that no one had ever done before, and it caused its competition to absolutely hate it. And when you have engineering that's controversial, woo boy, that intrigues the heck out of me. That's a little tush tickler for you. So today, we are going to look at some of the wild engineering that went into building one of the craziest race cars to ever hit the track. We're going to look at how they used fans from a howitzer tank to suck the car to the ground, how they used some unconventional bodywork to create a vacuum while the car was zipping around the track, and how they kept 650 of 1970s horsepower to the ground using an automatic transmission. This car is a good one. Let's go. I want to thank Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's episode of Bumper to Bumper.
You guys are making my job too easy. You keep all your personal information easily accessible on the interwebs. Oh, look at that. Oh, I know everything about you now. I know your passwords, your emails, your dreaded middle name.
I sound like someone who's for sure a Harry Potter character. You don't have to deal with chumps like these with Surfshark VPN. They protect you with HackLock that scans databases looking for your personal information, alerting you if one of your accounts is compromised. And not only does Surfshark VPN protect you, but they block targeted advertising, allowing a much higher online experience. So take control of your digital experience. Don't let these fools try to scare you. And renew your online freedoms with Surfshark VPN. Click the link in the description and use code DONUTMedia. It not only gives you a massive 85% off the regular price, but also 3 months of service totally for free. Give it a try. Click the link in the description below. Thank you for supporting the companies that support us. We love you. Now, back in the late 60s, there was a little racing series called the Canadian American Challenge Cup, or if you didn't have time to say all those words, the Can-Am series. And it was a no limits free-for-all. Engineer and build whatever race car you want and throw it on the track. Now think early days of MMA, nut punching, eye gouging, head stomping, all legal stuff. It was a wild ass time for racing cars, and the 2J was one of the wildest of the bunch. Now, the Chaparral team's 2J was feared by its competitors. On race day, the car would not only qualify first, but it would qualify a full 2 seconds a lap quicker than the second place car. Now, other teams argued to the SCCA, that's the governing body of the Can-Am series, that the 2J was illegal and tried to get the car banned from racing the series. It had a massive 7-liter V8 making 650 horsepower. Now, what really set this car apart from its competition were two 17-inch fans from an M109 howitzer tank. And those two fans were powered by a secondary motor. That's right, the 2J had two engines. Now, its primary engine was the all-aluminum Chaparral ZL1 motor. You may have heard of it. They put it in some Copa Camaros. Those engines are the same ones that were from the Chaparral race team. And aside from its primary engine, it also had a secondary engine, which was a 2-cylinder Rockwell engine from a snowmobile that spanned the fans up to 6,000 RPM. I'm just gonna send that. 2-stroke too, that's freaking tight. You like mixing gas and slapping freaking buns? That's what a 2-stroke is. The fans would suck the car to the ground and shoot air out the back so hard that it could power the 2J up to 40 miles per hour just on fan power. What? But the fans weren't there to give the car a boost of speed. It was designed to suck the car to the ground and increase grip in the corners without creating drag at high speeds. Now you see, with normal aerodynamic elements like wings and canards, the air travels faster underneath the ring, creating a low pressure zone. Now we talked about this before. It's called the Bernoulli principle. But the problem with more traditional forms of making downforce is that they rely on the airspeed outside of the car, and that is determined by how fast the car is going. So, if the car slows down, the airspeed slows down, making your wings less effective. I'm talking to you, my Civic boys. That's why you gotta always drive fast in that little thing. Now, this has always been one of the big dilemmas of aerodynamics. To get the car to grip more from downforce, you need to go fast, which increases the amount of downforce you need to maintain grip. Now, carrying on with that thought, another problem with downforce generating elements is drag. And drag refers to the car's ability to cut through the air. So the sleeker and more aerodynamic it is, the less it's affected by the air and the less drag is holding it back. But aerodynamic components need drag. I mean, wings need to cause air disturbance to generate that low pressure. So when you're at high speeds, your aerodynamics are actually working the hardest. The most stress is being put on your wings, and your car is being pushed into the ground the most. But that also means that your car is working harder to push its way through the air. That's why it's so hard to make a car go like 200 miles per hour. And if we look at the equation to find out how much drag there is, we can see that the velocity is squared, meaning that the drag will increase quadratically as airspeed increases. Last time I talked about this, I said exponentially, and I messed up. I apologize. Sometimes I go off script and I say things and I'm wrong, so I apologize. When it's a little 2 there, that doesn't mean exponential, that means quadratically. Okay, they're different. 2 to the x versus x to the 2. Very different. So, how do 2 big fans in a 2-cylinder engine help you avoid those problems? Well, it's really pretty ingenious. The sucking the air out from the underside of the car creates a low pressure zone, just like a wing would. But here is the kicker. This low pressure zone isn't determined by the car's speed at all. So it can grip just as much in the corners as it can on the straights. So this thing could carry speed through any type of corner. And the fan system also didn't generate any drag, right? I mean, it's all tucked underneath the car. And if anything, the fans push the car just an extra little bit. We talked about it being able to go 40 miles per hour just on fan speed. So it's giving you some extra velocity to propel your car in the forward direction. Now, another advantage for the driver of the 2J was that the fans sucked all that air up and whatever debris it was, like rocks, and it shot it out the back. So people were literally eating your dust as you drove by them. Another reason people freaking hated this car. Can you imagine you're on your racetrack and you're just like, doo, 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 doo. Some guy comes up beside you and his fans are blowing all that crap right in your face. So these fans are what made the car so well known. But the fans alone aren't enough to cement this car in the pages of Can-Am history. The 2J has a few more tricks up its jumpsuit. Now, looking at the 2J, the bodywork doesn't look all that fancy, but it was very specially designed to maximize the vacuum effect underneath. Now, the rear wheels are enclosed to help create a tighter seal for the fans, and the sides of the car are straight and square to house one of the most ingenious parts of the sucker car, and that is the skirts. Now, the skirts of the 2J are lightweight pieces of Lexan, which at the time was a new polycarbonate material from General Electric, the same company that probably builds your washing machine or your fridge. Nowadays, Lexan and similar polycarbonates are used in racing all the time as a lightweight, shatterproof alternative to windshields. But at the time, it was a brand new material in motorsports. And what made these skirts special, though, wasn't just the material, but how they attached to the car. So the skirts were actually free-floating pieces that used a series of pulleys and weights and mechanical arms to balance themselves with the suspension. And the idea was that no matter what, the skirts would stay perfectly level to the track surface, letting the fans create a consistent vacuum effect all the time. But it wasn't a perfect seal, and for good reason. I'm probably thinking, well, how could it seal? Why would you want a perfect seal? Well, now I'm gonna show you, okay? Have you ever taken a vacuum hose and you put it directly onto a carpet and realize it's a lot harder to move all of a sudden? Well, this is why the TJ couldn't just let the skirts drag on the ground. The friction caused by the skirts with the added pressure from the vacuum would have actually slowed the car down. But if the skirts were too high, the vacuum effect wouldn't generate enough low pressure. So the Chaparral team found the perfect balance between too much and too little vacuum. And this is also why the skirt system had to be so complicated and self-adjusting. That perfect balance and consistency was really, really important. You might be asking, well, why is it so important, Jerry? Well, imagine a car going around a corner. Now the car will lean to one side a little bit as the weight shifts, and it's called body roll. You guys probably know about it. When you turn around a corner, you can feel your car and you can feel the weight shift, which means that the skirts on the inside would lift, releasing some of the negative pressure, which would mean that you would lose grip. And in the middle of a corner, that's exactly the last place you want your car to suddenly lose grip. So with the skirt system counterbalanced to the movement of the suspension, that seal can stay consistent. The result of all this was a car that could generate up to 1.5 G's of downforce without moving. And when the fans kicked on, the car would lower a full 2 inches. Like, hey dude, oh my gosh, your car on bags? Nah bro, I'm utilizing the Bernoulli principle. But even with all this downforce, the 2J was still running on the ragged edge of what 1970s tires could handle. And to solve that problem, Chaparral looked at an unlikely component, the transmission. Whenever any of us think of racing, you think about rolling through the gears, man, just friggin' banging through those sweet ass shifties. And when a car slows for a tight corner, you can hear the manual downshift. Everybody knows that. Pop, 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 pop. That was perfect. So what if I told you that this frickin' 2J sucker car, this marvel of engineering, was running a 3-speed automatic transmission? I know, that friggin' blows your mind, right? But this slush box was one of the reasons the 2J could get its 650 horsepower to the ground. Now with a standard manual transmission, the power output of the engine goes into the gearbox through a clutch. And when the car is in gear, the clutch disc is squeezed against the flywheel of the engine so that the clutch spins at the same speed. And that spins the gears of the gearbox and eventually the wheels. Now the problem is that the power delivery of that clutch system is either on or it's off. So to change gears in a race car, you gotta be super duper skilled. So you gotta know how to rev match, you gotta know how to heel toe shift, you gotta throttle blip, you gotta do all kinds of stuff that us normal drivers take for granted. And if you mess up even just a little bit with an engine this powerful on 1970s tires that can't handle that power, you can shock the system. So to explain what that means, imagine a car accelerating through a high-speed corner. It's getting faster and faster, right on the limit of grip. And as it shifts up, the power to the wheels is cut, and when the power comes back on, the engine is spinning at a different speed than it was before. Now, race car drivers train to match the revs as much as possible, especially because a new gear means a different ratio and a different engine speed for the new wheel speed. But imagine if you're off by even a little bit. All of a sudden, the engine is driving the wheels, let's just say 5 miles per hour slower than it was a second ago. And that discrepancy in wheel speed is enough to break the tires loose and spin the car. But with an automatic, the clutch system is replaced with a torque converter. So instead of a clutch and a flywheel, the engine output drives an impeller. And that's just like a propeller, but instead of moving through fluid, fluid moves through it. So impeller spins in a housing filled with thick fluid, and that housing also has a turbine. And as the fluid spins, it spins the turbine. So instead of friction, we're using fluid dynamics to drive the wheels. So for the Chaparral cars, this meant that the fluid of the torque converter would dampen any abrupt changes in the engine or wheel speed. And this is one of the main reasons people often say that automatic cars are slower than a manual equivalent, especially in early days of automatic transmission, because there's a parasitic loss of power to the fluid in a torque converter, especially under acceleration. But on the flip side of that, you get a smoother ride, and that smoother ride helped keep the 2J on track. And Chaparral also used this automatic transmission for a slightly different reason. If they would have a manual, the 2J would have had 4 pedals. And if we know anything from Clover lore, 4 is bad. So in their previous cars, Chaparral had a wing that would be controlled by a pedal under the left foot. Now on the straights, you could press the pedal and flatten out the wing to reduce drag. It was basically a primitive DRS system that's used in Formula 1 today. Now Active Aero was eventually banned in the Can-Am series, and because it was banned, the 2J team was like, all right, cool, whatever, you don't want to let us use Active Aero, fine. I'll just go and borrow some tank fans and I'll put them under my car and I'll suck it to the ground. That's what you gotta love about engineers, man. You ban us from doing this, we're clever, okay? We're gonna bend the rules just a little bit. Now the engineering on the 2J was ahead of its time. And if the Chaparral 2J had been allowed to compete in 1971, I bet they would have worked out all the kinks and racing today might look a little bit different. But you know, the concepts didn't totally die. F1 teams like Brabham and Lotus tried to use this tech as well. So let me know in the comments if you want to see us break down how they did it. I mean, that'd be pretty cool, right? I'd be into breaking down some F1 technology if you're interested in it. Do you guys like Formula 1? I know Nolan does. He's made a bunch of episodes on Wheelhouse. You should go and watch those. Thank you for watching all these videos on Donut. We love you guys. We're gonna keep making videos every day if we can. Maybe even twice a day. There might be a time when we'll be on 24/7. Could you imagine? Thank you. Bye for now.